What was Tolkien's problem with Dune? The answer is a rare, blunt intensity from a professor who usually kept his criticisms private. He found its cynical, high-tech world to be the absolute opposite of his own sacred myths. In March of 1966, a copy of Dune landed on the desk of J.R.R. Tolkien. Most fans expected a game recognizes game kind of moment between the two giants of speculative fiction, but the reality was a cold shoulder. In a letter to John Bush, Tolkien didn't just offer a mild critique, he admitted to disliking the book with some intensity. For a man who lived by the strict codes of Oxford academia and old world manners, using a word like intensity was the equivalent of a public shout. He famously refused to elaborate further, claiming it was best to keep silent rather than be unfair to a fellow author. This surpassed a casual dismissal, marking a genuine moment of aesthetic and moral revulsion. Tolkien, the ultimate gentleman, found something so fundamentally wrong in Herbert's desert world that he felt the only polite thing to do was stop talking entirely. This silence spoke volumes to his inner circle, as he rarely encountered a world that he felt required total withdrawal. But the friction between those two icons wasn't just about taste. Tolkien lived and breathed his Catholic faith, seeing religion as a source of objective divine grace that guided the world toward a primary truth. To him, myths were sacred vessels meant to reveal deeper moral realities. Herbert, on the other hand, presented religion and Dune as the missionaria protectiva, a system of social engineering. The Bene Gesserit order deliberately plants myths and prophecies across the stars, specifically to manipulate and control future populations. It's on point for them. This reduces faith to a calculated piece of political software or a survival exploit. For a man who viewed the divine as an untouchable mystery, seeing the sacred treated as a weapon of mass psychological manipulation stood as a direct insult. Tolkien's world relies on the quiet presence of providence, while Herbert's universe is a cold machine where gods are manufactured by committees for the sake of leverage. Really makes you wonder how Tolkien would have approached Warhammer 40k, right? Anyway, outside of their religious friction, the two men held completely opposite views on what it actually means to have power. Middle-earth functions on the simple, radical idea that power should be refused. You see characters like Frodo and Faramir prove their worth not by seizing control, but by walking away from the ring and using humility to stay uncorrupted. Frank Herbert took the opposite path with Paul Atreides, who uses his prescience to navigate a path toward a bloody intergalactic jihad. Paul's not a traditional hero. He's a warning about the danger of charismatic leaders. Tolkien firmly believed that good deeds could never be achieved through evil means, yet Dune operates entirely on the tragic cold calculus of the lesser evil. While Tolkien celebrated the small, quiet resistance of ordinary people, Herbert focused on the terrifying momentum of a messiah who destroys entire civilizations to secure a future. These stories don't just differ in plot, they represent two fundamentally conflicting views on what it means to lead. Paul's prescience serves as a cosmic trap, whereas Tolkien's characters find freedom by making moral choices without knowing the future. This view of humanity extended directly into the natural world. Having watched the English countryside he loved get swallowed by factories and smoke, Tolkien grew to despise what he called the machine. You see this very clearly in villains like Saruman, who tear down ancient forests to make room for gears and fire just to be more efficient. Tolkien didn't see nature as a resource to be managed, he saw it as a living gift that deserved protection. Herbert approached the environment with the mind of a sociologist obsessed with ecology as a system. The characters on Arrakis view the desert as a massive technical puzzle that needs to be solved, terraformed, and eventually mastered. This analytical, almost surgical approach to the world stands as the polar opposite of Tolkien's mythic romance. Where the professor saw a sacred tree as a friend with its own history, the architect of Dune saw a biological unit within a complex environmental loop. And Shai-Hulud. If the philosophy didn't clash, the technical writing style absolutely did. As a master philologist, Tolkien treated language as the bedrock of his entire universe. He obsessed over the music and lineage of every word, crafting an elevated, rhythmic prose that echoed the cadence of ancient myths. To him, the sound of a world was just as vital as the map or the history. Herbert took a completely different approach, fitting Dune with a cold, analytical style that focused heavily on technical exposition and internal monologues. For a professor who believed writing should feel like a living piece of folklore, Herbert's utilitarian and systems-heavy prose likely came across as linguistically soulless. Tolkien's sentences are meant to be felt and heard, while Herbert's often read like a sociological briefing. This fundamental clash in technical style meant the two authors weren't just telling different stories, they were speaking entirely different languages of the imagination. That lack of soul is most visible in how Herbert treats the human mind. So, one of the most distinct concepts in Dune is the mentat, a human trained from childhood to function as a biological computer. Tolkien harbored a deep lifelong suspicion of anything that reduced people to tools or parts of a machine again. He likely found the idea of stripping away the mystery of the human mind to turn it into a logic processor utterly horrifying. In Middle-earth, the most insignificant hobbit possesses an unknowable soul that can defy all odds through sheer heart and willpower. In the Dune universe, though, it often treats humans as specialized hardware or genetic data points to be optimized for efficiency. This removal of the mythic soul and flavor of biological calculation sits at the exact opposite end of the spectrum from Tolkien's worldview. Where the professor saw a divine spark, the architect of Arrakis saw a complex input-output system. These differing views on humanity led to two very different endings. Tolkien famously built his stories toward a eucatastrophe, that sudden, joyous turn where hope is restored by a moment of divine grace. Even in the darkest hour, his work is ordered toward a final, transcendent joy that rewards the faithful. Herbert's vision offers the golden path, which is anything but joyous. It's a multi-thousand-year period of intentional tyranny and suffering designed to traumatize humanity into becoming so self-reliant that they can never be controlled again. Tolkien's ending focuses on the restoration of a rightful king and the return of peace, while Herbert's work serves as a brutal, stern warning that charismatic heroes are the greatest threat to our survival. One author wanted to inspire his readers with the possibility of light, while the other wanted to harden them against the shadows of power. Tolkien didn't hate Dune because it lacked quality. He disliked it because it was the perfect antithesis of his own life's work. Every choice Frank made for Arrakis seemed designed to challenge the very foundations of Middle-earth. One author looked back toward ancient forgotten myths to find moral clarity and a sense of divine purpose, while the other looked forward toward complex systems and cold structures to deliver a grim warning. In 2026, these two giants still stand as the opposite poles of our imagination. We still need both to navigate the modern world. Tolkien to train our hearts in the value of humility and sacrifice, and Herbert to train our skepticism against the allure of charismatic power. Their disagreement was inevitable because they were solving two different human problems. One sought to give us hope through the sacred, while the other sought to give us survival through the analytical. Their clash leaves us with one final, haunting question to answer. Would you rather follow a leader who offers a path of secret hope, or one who warns you that every hero is a trap? Let us know what you think in the comments down below.